Good afternoon. I'm going to introduce Josephine DeFalco. She's always had a special relationship with food, born into an Italian family that loved to garden, cook, and eat to excess. It was only natural that she launched her college education in the field of nutrition and dietetics. She completed her first bachelor degree at the University of Missouri Columbia and became a registered dietitian. Joe practices at RD in the Phoenix area while working part-time as the health editor for Arizona Women's Magazine until she returned to school to complete a second bachelor's degree in nursing and was later certified as an emergency medical technician. Food, health, nutrition, and safety have defined her life for the last 40 years. Living by her Hippocratic belief that food is our best medicine, she has had her own garden from the time that she was 5 years old and has not stopped playing in the dirt since then. She is the author of 2 books on food production and indulges in writing historical fiction. Recently retired from nursing, her present mission as a registered dietitian is to encourage everyone to grow their own organic, chemical-free food and develop their skills for food preservation. In this way, we can all be responsible for our own families, our own health, and our own well-being. By reaching out to local communities and sharing these skills, we all achieve food security. Thank you. Please give a nice warm welcome for Joe. Thanks.
Before I even say anything, I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Back there? Okay. All right. Well, I'm so happy to be back in Missouri. I did get my degree at Mizzou, and I managed to hook me a husband at the same time. Hi, he's over there. I brought my Missouri boy back to Arizona, and this month it will be 40 years of marriage for us. So offer him a little empathy or sympathy or something for putting up with me all those years. Thank you. So today I'm teaching a beginning level course on canning, and if you've never attempted this before, my goal is to get you to feel positive about this experience and to take that step to get started. I'm sure you're all gardeners, grow your own food, but when the harvest is complete, then we'd like to see you have those food stores and start food preservation. So I'm going to give you an overview of the whole process, and then hopefully give you the tools you need to get started, at least with the water bath canning, which is the first step you'll take. Okay, so my first question to you is why you want to start canning. And this was my reason. This was my firstborn daughter. And one day, while I was taking care of her, the news was on, and that's what we called it before it became media. And President Reagan was flying around in his doomsday machine. And that is an airplane that keeps our president protected so he can still run the country while the rest of us are down here becoming atomic French fries. So I freaked out when I thought about my little girl and this beautiful baby, and how was I going to take care of her if something like that happened? My fear got to the point where it literally made me sick. I could not hold food in. I had no appetite. I wasn't sleeping at night, and I let that go on for 3 weeks until I realized I needed to take control with gaining power by learning. So I taught myself to do food preservation. I guess I'm a prepper from the get-go. We didn't call ourselves that back then. So just doing that gave me the confidence I needed to have food stores for my family, and that's how all this started. You might have another reason. Do you have excess produce? I bet on any summer day I can walk into your kitchens and find a pile of tomatoes sitting there. And when you get to that point where your neighbor sees you coming with a basket of vegetables and then they run the other direction, then it's time for you to do something else with your food. Maybe you want to have control of your food source. Before I got out here, there was a recall in Yuma, my own home state, for E. coli with the lettuce. And I thought, okay, well, I just go to my back door, and that's how I harvest my food. So maybe you live off the grid. Maybe you don't have a big freezer or a place to store all that food and don't want something that consumes electricity. Or maybe you want the independence of being responsible for your own food and your own well-being. And The last one, responsibility for yourself. I know this group is probably really big on that, but that's a big thing to me. Because if we all learn to take care of ourselves and take that knowledge and teach it to our community, then we are doing a great thing for this planet. So to get from the tomatoes to the tomato sauce, that's where we're going to head today. So we're going to go through the preservation, different processes, and look at the pros and cons. So we're talking about canning versus freezing versus drying. Okay, freezing foods. Fast and easy. Some of you saw my little stand I had at my table where you can just fill the bag, you wash your vegetables, you blanch them, you throw them in the freezer. But if you have a freezer that looks like this, you're going to have a problem storing your food. Going to require electricity for that, of course. If you have a lot of power outages, I don't know how many of you have ever come home to a freezer where it's been left open or your food is spoiled, so there's a risk with that. You need storage space for it, and you need very little equipment to actually do the freezing. So that's good. If you've got a big freezer, you got a place to store it. That's one way to put your food up. But I am more interested in the canning. So drying and dehydration is another option for you. If you have a lot of humidity, like we do here, you run the risk of your food molding if you're going to be drying it. But it's doable. It does require time and rehydration, but much less storage space, so that's the advantage. And I'm sure all of you saw my air dryer that I use. This other one over on the other side, the big blue cube there, that's a freeze dryer. Those are for very serious food preservationists. They run about $2,000. So you got to really want to do a lot of food preservation. And it super cools the food, and then it takes all the water out. From a nutrition standpoint, the freeze drying holds on to the nutrition or the nutrients a whole lot better. So if you want to invest in that, or you know somebody else that wants to do that with you, that's something you might want to consider. For me, I stick with the canning. What are your canning expectations? You should expect to make an investment in some equipment. And really, all that comes to is a kettle for water bath canning, a pressure cooker as you advance your skills, and then your jars. And so it's not a huge investment of equipment. You're going to require a block of time. You're going to have to set that time aside. And I've said this before, but when I'm in my kitchen canning and minding what I'm doing, I don't want anybody interrupting me. So I will literally tell them, if you're not bleeding to death or if your hair isn't on fire, leave me alone, because I have to can safely. So, and that includes a dog too. Nobody bothers me. In general, canning's going to have a shorter shelf life than the freeze-dried foods. But all your processed foods are going to lose nutrients. So of course we want to go fresh first, and then to the other ways of preserving our food. Let's talk about safety. You heard in the introduction, I'm an EMT. So we're really big on that. And if anyone has ever seen what happens with botulism poisoning, it's not pretty. I don't want to scare you to death, but you can die if you do something foolish with your canning. So there are no shortcuts, in my opinion. You need to follow the recipe as it's written and make sure you complete your full timing. The thing with the botulinum is in the soil. It's everywhere. That one is deadly. If any of you, have you had food poisoning before? You know what that feels like? Just general food poisoning? You feel like you want to die. It's so bad. But this one will kill you. It will paralyze your diaphragm muscles, and you'll literally stop breathing because of this darn bacteria. So that's why when you go to the pressure cooker canning, you want your food boiling in the jar, and then you know you've killed everything you have to worry about. So no shortcuts.